We had a dining area, then we had a living room section right across. It must have been about 20 feet long, and it was pretty wide too. And this girl actually got curtains have been a staple in home decor and design for centuries. They offer a combination of aesthetic and functional value that help to make any room cozy and complete. Not just any room. They are useful in many other applications throughout our home. Hi, home stars! Welcome back and welcome to the Comfy Home DIY Classroom. In today's lesson, we are looking at curtains. Yeah, it's Flashback Friday and we're flashing back a little, then we're gonna come back to the present and look at how we use curtains to make our home feel complete and cozy. So let's get right into it. Yeah, it's Flashback Friday. I just thought it would be nice to do a little flashback for home decor and design, what used to be and what is. Do they still exist? Have they become classics? Yeah, and so we want it to be entertaining, informational, educational, eye-opening, and maybe even a little nostalgic, right? And so the first application we're going to look at is windows. It's a given, right? The first thing that pops into our head when we hear about curtains are windows. And we are looking at three main reasons why curtains were used and why they're still being used. It has not changed. Maybe there is a little bit of a difference why they were used then from now, but essentially they are virtually the same. And there is one that you may find, I don't know, a bit strange, but I'm going to tell you about that one right off the bat because I don't think that exists anymore, right? It is curtains were used at a period in time to actually show social status. So the more layered or the more velvet or damask or brocade or elaborate curtains you could use, is the more it shows that you were elevated in life, so to speak. Now, it doesn't matter. You can go into a $20 million home and you will see simple, sophisticated window treatments, right? So right off the bat, I don't think we use curtains for status anymore, but we do use it for insulation. Historically, curtains were used to block out drafts and cold during the cold months and keep the heat inside the home. And during the warm months, they were used to block out the sunlight and the heat and keep the home cooler, right? Now, windows in those days were thinner. We still have some thin pane windows around the place in some very old homes, right? But the windows were thinner and they were more drafty. And so the window treatments were more elaborate. They were more like thick, layered fabrics, right? Very ornate looking. Whereas nowadays, our windows, we have like argon gas between panes and they are like insulated. And so we don't need to make our curtains so heavy and ornate, right? But we still need them for insulation value because the sun hasn't changed. It might be getting even hotter. And so sometimes we need to just pull those curtains and block out that sunlight so that we can keep inside the home cool, just like in historical times, right? Now, the other reason is for privacy. They needed privacy back then. We need privacy now. Maybe we even need more privacy because homes are getting closer and closer and closer together, and closer to the street so that people can see inside. So generally, you want to have your curtains on your windows if you're in any of those situations. Maybe if you're living in the countryside like I am, and people own like acres and acres and acres, so your homes are not so close together. We own an acre, right? We don't own acres and acres, but just saying. And what would happen is you would, at least most of the time, want to pull your curtains open anyway. So then where's the privacy when you pull your curtains open? One thing you can do is use sheer. So you use a sheer fabric under your thicker curtain panels, so that when you pull your curtain panels aside, the sheer will be there at least to create some type of semi-privacy. Another reason why we have curtains on our window is light control. They use it for light control back then. We're still using it for light control today, right? And so generally you want to make sure that your curtains, if you're using curtains for light control, you want to make sure that they extend past your frame so that you don't get light seepage. And if you want light control and you're using rod pocket, casement, tunnel top curtains, you have to make sure that you have another layer behind those curtains because they butt up. And when they butt up, generally you get light seepage. If you do another type of heading that goes over like that, overlap, then you won't get that light seepage. Now, we are going to go on to number 2 application for curtains. Let's enter the bedroom. And no, we're not going back to windows in the bedroom. We are going straight to that bed. The bed that usually the head of the bed becomes the focal in the room. Yeah, and guess what we can have above that bed head? We can have what's called a coronet. Now, coronet in those days, again, were embellished, right? We still do use some coronet these days, but they are more simple. They're not as embellished. I think I'll just go ahead and drop some pictures on the screen so that you guys can look at, so that you home stars can look at what I am talking about, right? Now, not only do we use them curtains for coronets at the bed head, but we also use curtains to drape around the bed. Now, there used to be some curtains draping around some beds, and then like top on, almost like you have a house top on your bed. And so they were very ornate, very embellished. But we don't do that anymore. We have reduced the bulk and the ornateness, and we have taken it down and to the point where we actually drape our beds in farmhouses, in coastal homes, but we do it with very light fabric, very flowy fabric. More often than not, more neutral fabric, because the more patterned, especially floral, the fabric is the more historical kind of back there it will look. So you want to mind your pattern and the content of your fabric also when you are doing anything like that. We also use canopies, right? So the canopies can be hung from the ceiling just about midpoint in the ceiling over your bed, or it can be attached to your bed. Now, canopies were used in historical time for function over form. It was used to keep out when you're sleeping at night, to keep out insects. Nowadays, insects such as mosquitoes, right? Nowadays, they are also used to keep out mosquitoes, but that is mostly in a situation where you may be living in the countryside. If you're living in the heart of the city or in some urban areas, maybe you don't need it for that. But maybe you just want to use it for aesthetic value. From bohemian to traditional to minimalist to coastals, canopies are used across decor and design styles. It all depends on the fabric you use, the patterns you use, how you drape the fabric. Yeah, and so you use it and you make it applicable to your situation. Number 3, the third way that we use curtains. Before we get out of the bedroom, let's just head straight into that bathroom. Because we do use curtains in our bathrooms. Again, not on the windows, but across or in front of the shower. Now, we generally refer to them as shower curtains. They are curtains, right? So that's one application for curtains in our homes. Generally, shower curtains were shower curtains. Nowadays, shower curtains are becoming more of a thing. So you will find that even the curtains that you put on your windows are being used in the shower now or on the shower. You find pinch pleat curtains being hung on the shower. You'll find grommet curtains being hung, hidden top curtains. The one curtain I would suggest you not use as a shower curtain is the rod pocket. Now, yeah, if you want to, you can. However, it is harder to drape or to pull, to glide a rod pocket across the rod. And so I would want to stay away from a rod pocket shower curtain. Now we're going to make a beeline and we're going to leave that bathroom. Say we're standing in the middle of a very large room where different places in that room has different function. Yeah, curtains are used as room dividers. Now, if you are watching this video and you know a thing or two about using curtains as a room divider, and you're probably my age, right? I'm almost 59 years old. Yeah, you would know about curtains being used as a divider. If you have a bedroom and you have a little boy and a little girl came along, you want to separate them, you can't afford to move out of the home, you put a divider. So you have the boy on one side and the girl on one side. I can remember when my hubby and I had our first son. We were living in a 1-bedroom apartment. But guess what? A little personal story now, but guess what? That apartment had a pretty big living room. We had a dining area, then we had a living room section right across. It must have been about 20 feet long, and it was pretty wide too. And this girl actually got rods up, and I created a little room space for our son so that when our son was older, out of the crib, instead of being in our bedroom where we couldn't afford to move out of the apartment at that time, he moved into his own little space, which was created by curtain dividers. And so curtains can be used to not only divide space for you to get a room, but it can also be used to divide, like if you want to get an office space and you want a little semi-privacy, right? So it's a myriad of dividing up spaces that you can use curtains to do, right? You just got to get a little creative. Next application we're looking at is curtains being used over doorways. Now, whether the doorway is inside of the home or the doorway is a main entrance, yeah, historically curtains were used. Sometimes they were used on the inside on doors because they wanted to keep the cold out and keep the warm in another room. Nowadays, we still do use curtains between or on doorways. However, not so much for the cold passing through our situations like those, right? Because we can afford to have heat in our homes so that we don't have to do that. But for one reason that they used it back then, we do today: privacy, right? Now, we also, believe it or not, do use curtains on our main entrance doors. They did back then. They did it because they were using it for two things. One, for privacy, so that when the door is left open for air to go into the house, everybody who passes by did not see directly into the house because there's that screening there, right? It was also used to prevent insects like mosquitoes from going in. Yeah, some will get in, but it will prevent some of them from getting in. Now we use curtains on our doors, but we generally use them not for privacy nor screening so much, more for aesthetics. Right? Now, depending on your door, you may have a bank of sliding glass doors and you have curtains over that area. Then that's more than aesthetics. That's light control, that's insulation, that's privacy, right? So it depends on the situation. I tell you the truth that we're living in the countryside, and I'm going to be sharing more and more of my home with you because we have been fixing up this little home since we got here in the countryside, and we still have a lot to do. And it's just a little personal story again, but my hubby a couple of years ago changed out about 11 windows. We still have a bunch of windows more to change. But for the doors, it's kind of hard sometimes in an older home. It doesn't matter what you do, you get drafts and stuff. So I told myself this winter that this winter is going to be the last winter to come without me having drapes over my entrance doors on the inside, because that will help me to block draft out and to keep the warmth in the home, right? So it depends on your situation. Some of those things that were done then are still done now. We still use them because they have become classics, and they're actually not only for aesthetics, but for function. I hope this gave you a better understanding of how curtains were used and how they have influenced how we use them in our homes today. Thank you so much for being here, Home Stars. If you found this helpful, remember to like and subscribe. I will see you again tomorrow, Saturday, in our Comfy Home DIY classroom, when we will renew and reimagine something. Mwah.